Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Dancing Negotiator. On today's show, we are going to be talking about what does the Foxtrot have to do with conflict? And A is for approach. So on my show, The Dancing Negotiator, yes, you heard correctly, negotiator, because everything to do with conflict has to do with conflict, sometimes negotiation. But why the dancing part? I'm glad you asked that question. When you think of conflict, it's like a dance. Most specifically, when you think of conflict resolution or negotiation, it's like a dance, hence the title of my show. But for this particular show, the episode is titled, What Does the Foxtrot Have to Do with Conflict? And A is for approach. I hope I haven't lost it there, but if you recall, if you were here in my previous show, I will be introducing mnemonics. And I'll also be introducing frameworks that will help you understand conflict. And when appropriate, I will use appropriate stories to illustrate my point. So I started off last week by introducing an original mnemonic of conflict resolution of mine called the 5 A's of conflict resolution. I only gave you the first one last week, which is assess. Today, we will be doing A for approach. And the title once again for this episode is, What Does the Foxtrot Have to Do with Conflict? A is for approach, okay? So with not much ado, let's get right into this show, but I would like to let you know something too, okay? Moving forward, I would like to invite guests in the new year. I would like to reserve the last Fridays of every month to be a time when guests who are experts in their fields in conflict resolution will come join us. So for today, before we go right into our talk, I'd like to remind new viewers a little bit about who I am. And just like when I talk about conflict and conflict resolution, I look at it from a holistic perspective. I look at it from physical, social, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. So in the same token, when I like to describe myself, I like to describe myself in a holistic way. So I describe myself spiritually. I'm a child of Yahweh. You're probably like, what is that? Who is that? Feel free to research it. I'm also a daughter, a friend, a sister. And then for hobbies, I love to dance. I love to interpret dreams. I'm visionary. I'm a consultant, and much more. So keeping that in perspective, what exactly can I offer you? I do have a business called Shalom Eagles Wings. And if you need help in any facets that has to do with organizational development, I guess you can imagine that conflict arises in the workplace, and it's experienced when you have to do with organizational development. It's inevitable. So any areas in quality improvement, strategic management, risk management, you name it, change management, I will be very happy to assist you for my consultation services. I'm also a conflict resolution coach as well, and I am certified with the Canadian International Institute of Applied Negotiation. You can find me at Cheryl@shalomeagleswings.care, and my website is www.shalomeagleswings.care. Why? Because I care for you. We care for you. Win-win is all about women caring for each other, connecting and collaborating. So with that little bit of background about who I am, a little bit of conflict as it pertains to this show in general, let's delve right into today's episode. So I have a healthcare background. However, I don't want to assume that individuals that are viewing this show have a healthcare background. Hence, in various episodes, as I illustrate conflict, what I love to do is use scenarios from different workplaces, okay? So today, we're gonna be flying high. You're probably wondering, what does that mean? Well, we are gonna be using the workplace of aviation. Yes, up there in the air, okay? And the particular scenario we'll be assessing and addressing to illustrate the approach of conflict resolution is the persistent late employee. Let's pause for a minute. I would like to invite you to think of that one employee that's always late. You might say, at this point in time, I don't go to the office, I work from home, it doesn't matter. That could be, but do you attend meetings for anything, be it for work or for some other professional affiliation of yours? If so, think of that employee that constantly tunes in a little bit later than the start time, consistently. That would classify to some extent as a persistent late employee. But now I'd like to invite you to go high in the air with me to the workplace of aviation. So, when last did you travel? By air, I should specify. We're going to focus on 5 main employees that enable us to fly on a timely basis. The key is timely basis, right? So let's start from when you arrive at the airport. The first person usually is the check-in counter staff member. And then you have the gate check staff. So just before you board the plane, you have a pilot, you have an air hostess. You also have the staff responsible for putting your luggage at the right time, correct? On the airplane. So these are the 5 employees. Just imagine if any one of those are late, what will happen to your departure? Yes, your departure will be delayed, correct? So how do you approach, let's say, one of those 5 employees who is persistently late? I'll have you keep that thought. Just hold it, okay? But that's the question for today. How do you approach this persistent late employee among those 5? And let's just say it's the air hostess, okay? Now, I'd like you to just please bear with me as we use a scenario. The scenario we're gonna use is a fox. Not so much a fox, but I like you to think of this picture. When you think of this picture, what comes to mind? Some might say cute, some might say cunning, some might say shrewd. You've probably heard the expression as cunning as a fox, or some might say as shrewd as a fox. So for the purpose of this episode, and as you're thinking about how to approach a persistently late employee, think about a fox. And for this scenario, let's use the word shrewd, okay? Now, that image of shrewd might conjure up thoughts like dishonest or unethical. But actually, that's not a thought I would like us to contemplate on or dwell on right now. Let's rather think about it as being wise, okay? So you can still be as wise or shrewd as a fox, and you remain as innocent as a dog, okay? So when you think about a fox, it makes you wonder, where on earth did they get the expression as shrewd as a fox? Well, could it have to do with the way a fox approaches its prey? Maybe. So now I'm gonna invite you to view something. So the title was, what does the foxtrot? The title of this episode was, what does a foxtrot have to do? What does a foxtrot have to do with conflict? So here's another thing I would like to present. I'd like you to view this dance. And while you're viewing it, I want you to think about a few things, okay? A few things are, so far we've talked about the approach. When there's a conflict situation, you have to approach that topic. There's a right way to approach it, and there's a wrong way to approach it. We've brought in the image of a fox who is shrewd. We've painted the scenario of aviation. So now, Foxtrot, when I look at those words, I see a fox, I see a trot. So it has to do with the gait, if you will. Perhaps that's why it was named Foxtrot. But let's view this clip shortly. And I would like you to, let me just give me a second here. So I'd like you to think about Foxtrot, the dance Foxtrot. But before we do that, I would like you to watch this clip with me. Wow, I enjoyed that. I hope you did. So what came to mind as you were watching that beautiful dance of the Foxtrot? I'm curious to know if you counted the number of couples. Oops, excuse me. I'm curious to know if you counted the number of dancers. I know we have nothing to do with Fiverr. Yeah, Fiverr is a marketing tool, but not for this show. So yeah, so going back to the question, I counted about 8 couples. Did you notice the way the gentleman pranced at the initial beginning? Did you notice the smile on their face, almost like as sly as a fox? Now, can you imagine if any one of those couples was absent or late? How would that affect the dance that you just watched? Surely it would have totally interrupted the segments of it. So in the same token, when you have a flight crew responsible to be on time to make sure that you take off, that persistently late employee affects everything. The customer service, the productivity of the organization. So we see that's why that could be an issue, right? So I would like to expand a little bit further. So let's talk a little bit more about approach, okay? So when you approach an employee that's consistently late, you need to make sure it's the right time. So you need to know how to approach and when to approach, depending on the issue, well, this topic, if you feel a little bit uncomfortable. So let's say, for example, you're a fellow employee, you're not in a managerial role. You may feel, and if this employee is friends with you, and you feel comfortable, you can approach the individual one-on-one to explain how it's affecting the overall work of the crew. However, if you're a little bit cautious and feel a little bit intimidated by this employee, you could take someone with you, but when you explain it to the individual, make sure that you say it's not an approach to make them feel you're ganging up on them, but you just feel more comfortable if you had a third party. And the same principle applies in any context situation when you have to approach an individual you might be a little bit uneasy being present with. So that's an A for approach. But going further, I want to leave you with a mnemonic that will make sure that you're in the right frame of mind and physically, emotionally, holistically to approach this employee. So here's a little game for you. Can you guess the mnemonic? You're probably like, probably not. Let me help you. So for me, when I look in the anti-clockwise direction, I see, so let's say number 1, I see a lady eating ice cream. I see a lady next to her who looks like she's thinking with a frown. And then number 3, I see a kitty cat But look at the expression of the kitty cat. And then number 4, I see a lady who's sleeping. So I would like you to do something for me. So I had said eating, looks like they're eating, it looks like they're thinking. Kitty cat looks a little bit sad, and she looks, well, she is sleeping. So the mnemonic, as much as I mentioned what it appears the actions these individuals are presenting, instead of eating, I want you to replace the word eating with hungry. So if you have a pen and a paper, which I highly recommend you do coming to these episodes, you'll need, and you have opportunities to jot down things, or you can type it in the chat if you will. But besides number 1, the lady eating, instead of eating, write hungry. For number 2, instead of thinking, I'd like you to say angry. Okay. For number 3, instead of a sad kitty cat, I want you to write lonely. And for the lady that's sleeping, instead of sleeping, I'd like you to write tired. So with the preferred verbs or adjectives that I gave you, what is the mnemonic that you spelled out? I'll give you about 10 seconds or so, just to make sure you got it. So I repeat, number 1, the lady that's eaten, instead of saying eaten, write hungry. Number 2, the lady that's thinking, instead of thinking, write angry. For the kitty cat, instead of sad, write lonely. And for the lady that's sleeping, instead of sleeping, write tired. I hope you got the mnemonic for the preferred options I gave you. Option number 2, that spells halt. You might have heard of halt. Halt is actually used in mental health and in different scenarios and different workplaces, okay? And what does it mean? It means when you find yourself in a conflict situation, you want to halt. So I introduced to you my original second A of the 5 A's of conflict resolution, meaning approach. So how do you approach? You halt. Ask yourself, at this moment I find myself, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired? And if you find yourself in any one of those emotional states, halt. Don't proceed in trying to resolve that conflict. Make sure you eat if you're hungry. You've probably heard the expression, a hungry man is an angry man, or a hungry woman is an angry woman. So the same scenario applies in this case. So let's recap what we've talked about so far. So the title of this episode was, or is rather, what does the foxtrot have to do with conflict? And A is for approach. We determined that a fox is shrewd. It's shrewd in its way of approaching predators. It's wise. We want to have a positive spin on the word shrewd. In the same token, we should be shrewd and wise in our approach. How do we do that? By halting. For the scenario of the persistently late employee, in aviation, where you need a team approach, you need 5 solid members. I repeat, the check-in counter staff, the gate check-in counter staff, the pilot, the air hostess, and the staff that assemble the luggage onto your plane. If any one of these employees or staff members are late, that would hinder an effective and early flight, right? So to approach that employee, the air hostess who is constantly late, you approach first, you determine it's worth approaching. So basically what I'm saying, you assess that that issue really should be addressed, and yes, we agree it should be addressed, then you approach shrewdly, wisely. Make sure you're not hungry, you're not angry, you're not lonely, you're not tired. If you don't feel comfortable addressing this issue with the employee in your approach, you can bring someone with you, take someone with you to discuss this issue. So I hope that helps you understand the approach, which is the second A of the 5 A's of conflict resolution. So before I leave you, I just want to remind you once again, my vision for this show and for every woman viewing this is to empower. My mission is to empower everyone to deal with conflict effectively, efficiently, and in a timely manner. My vision is that I and we will be the first people that always incorporates a holistic perspective when dealing with conflict. So the persistently late employee, perhaps, just perhaps, she might be having family issues. That's an example of the social domain of a human being. So addressing that, again, we have to be careful that we don't cross boundaries of people's personal lives, but the fact her behavior is affecting everyone, we have to make sure that we address it in a respectful manner, okay? Values, always loving in our approach when we deal with conflict. So coming back to how I can help you if you need me to, I help with organizational development in any area, any level of a healthcare organization or healthcare organization, even though I have 18 years experience in the healthcare industry, primarily front lines, academia, leadership, small stage management, and as a consultant. If you need help with change management, risk management, quality improvement, strategic management, I'm very happy to assist you. I also review governance and policies, and I'm a subject matter expert for educational material reviews. I am a conflict resolution coach, happy to help you if you need it. You can find me at cheryl@shalomeagleswings.care. That's my email. And my website is www.shalomeagleswings.care. So guess what? I mentioned how I spent 18 years, I have an 18 years experience in healthcare. 10 of those years were spent in the operating room. So I actually have a new book that's published fresh off the press that you can find on Amazon. And it's called Conflict Resolution in the Operating Room. Is it fight, flight, or growth in communication? A manual for new employees. So I'll be very happy if you could seek it out, buy it for yourself with the holidays around the corner, buy it for family members if they need it. So I always like to leave you with one thing to always remember. Remember, you, that's right, you watching me, you listening to me, you are needed in this world to be a solution. Be the best that you can, and do not, I repeat, do not rob the world of a precious gem. You. I'd like you to have a splendid day. So, I just said I'd like you to have a splendid day, but also do not forget, you can tune in, same time, same place, every week. New things and exciting things are to come. Take care. Bye-bye.